all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus Delendis 8. The Ultimate Guide to Modern Agriculture, written by Conrad Reicher. Available now, links in description. Stoic farming strategies. The hidden logic behind the public ritual. I was at a wedding last summer where the groom promised to provide, protect, and die if necessary. The bride promised to continue growing as a person. The congregation wept. A divorce attorney in the 3rd row, I checked later, had billed more hours that month than a trauma surgeon. Everyone clapped. Nobody noticed that every trace of male authority had been stripped from the ceremony like copper from an abandoned house, while every molecule of male obligation had been retained, amplified, and laminated. I sat there watching this young man grin like a man signing a mortgage he hadn't read, and I thought, this is not a marriage. This is a labor contract with a suicide clause. We are told by women who have never read a ledger that marriage oppressed women. The word matrimonium comes from Latin meaning the office of motherhood, an institution oriented toward legitimate children, stable inheritance, and civilizational continuity. The word oprimere means to crush. So, the feminist claim requires us to believe that giving a woman economic security, social status, legal protection, lifelong provision, and legitimate offspring constitutes crushing her. This is not argument. It is semantic terrorism practiced by people who benefit from the institution while denouncing the architect who built it. For 99% of human history, an unmarried woman faced destitution, sexual vulnerability, and childlessness. Marriage was not her cage. It was the only shield between her and a world that had no HR department, no welfare office, and no Tinder. Meanwhile, women initiate approximately 70% of divorces. I want you to hold that number in your mind like a coin between your fingers. No oppressed class in the history of the planet voluntarily enters its oppression, throws itself a $35,000 party to celebrate, and then unilaterally terminates it 7 out of 10 times. The Gulag did not have a registry. Auschwitz did not have a gift table. The feminist response that women have been socially conditioned to desire their own oppression is unfalsifiable, condescending, and robs women of every shred of agency they claim to champion. If women cannot identify their own oppression, feminism is not liberation. It is a new patriarchy with a different priesthood wearing pantsuits instead of vestments. And here's what no feminist economist has ever counted, because counting it would end the conversation and their careers. Women possess a fertility premium, intrinsic reproductive value that operates before any achievement, skill, labor, or character. A woman with no education, no job, and no savings still has sexual and reproductive value that men will pay to access. A man in identical circumstances possesses nothing. He must mine his worth from the earth through risk, labor, and provision. She is born holding currency. He is born holding a shovel. The dating app data confirms what evolution encoded. Women rate 80% of men as below average looking. Men rate women on a normal curve. Women swipe right on 14% of male profiles. Men swipe right on 46% of female profiles. The market does not lie. It simply reveals what polite society refuses to name, because naming it would collapse the entire oppressor-oppressed narrative that funds every gender studies department and divorce law firm in the Western world. I'm going to show you in the pages ahead the hidden economy that no feminist ledger has ever counted. The male tax dollars funding a parallel husband called the welfare state. The 93% occupational fatality rate that no equality activist mentions. The family court machinery that treats male paternity as a financial obligation immune to fraud. The protective instinct that makes a man step between a threat and his companion without thinking and then gets reframed as toxic masculinity by the same ideology that demands protection it cannot provide. I will show you the self-refuting syllogisms, the etymological sleight of hand, the institutional capture, and the fruit test applied without mercy. And then I will hand you the one tool no university, no HR department, and no algorithm wants you to hold. The disciplined masculine intellect that can define its terms, test its premises, detect a fallacy in real time, and build a life that answers to logos rather than propaganda. A man who does not read is governed by men who do. The book is the tool that turns a consumer into a sovereign. What follows is your map out of the cave. The marriage deception. How feminism's critique of marriage refutes itself. I attended a wedding where the vows had been surgically rewritten. Every trace of male authority was excised, every molecule of male obligation retained. He promised to provide and protect. She promised to be herself. The congregation applauded. The divorce attorney in the third row smiled. This farce relies on semantic terrorism, where oppression from the Latin oprimere to crush has been redefined to mean any constraint on female preference. Under this definition, gravity is oppressive. Marriage, from matrimonium, the office of motherhood, historically provided women economic security and legitimate offspring. For 99% of history, an unmarried woman faced destitution. Calling this shield crushing is not argument, it is a shriek against reality from a woman standing safely in a house men built. Consider the much malign doctrine of coverture, where a married woman's legal identity merged with her husband's. Feminists called this subjugation. The reality, he assumed a legal and financial liability for her actions. She could not be sued or drafted. He could be sued for her debts and conscripted to die in her stead. Coverture was male liability exchanged for male authority. Today's no-fault divorce regime has removed that authority, paternal rights, headship, presumption of custody, while retaining and strengthening the liability, child support, alimony, asset division, and imprisonment for non-payment. Does this institution protect fathers, due process, and male property? No. It protects women's property and state interests. This is not liberation. It is a contract where one party bears all liability and the other holds all exit options. The feminist critique collapses under its own logical weight. If marriage oppresses women, they are the only oppressed class in history that voluntarily enters its oppression, celebrates entry with a 3,000 and 5,000 ceremony, and initiates departure 70% of the time. Rosenfeld, Stanford, 2015. The oppressed do not throw themselves parties to enter the gulag. Yet feminists simultaneously demand the right to marry whomever they wish, including other women, while condemning men who refuse to marry as immature man-children. This reveals the true position. Marriage is only oppression when it confers male authority. The underlying syllogism that any constraint on autonomy is oppressive does not critique marriage. It critiques civilization itself. 50 years after no-fault divorce, the fruit test is in. 40% of children raised fatherless, marriage rates plummeting, female antidepressant use soaring, and documented declines in female happiness. Yet the gamma bias is deafening. Male costs of marriage failure, suicide spiking 3.5x higher, homelessness, asset loss are privatized as individual failings. Female costs are politicized as systemic injustice. Who benefit? A 50 billion family court industry, a welfare bureaucracy replacing husbands, and corporations gaining a doubled labor force. Feminists claim marriage economically disadvantages women, ignoring that the male wage premium exists because married men absorb risk, commute farther, and die earlier to provide. He doesn't get a bonus for being male. He gets a bonus for being expendable. The attack on marriage is a host organism feeding on the family's dissolution. Judging marriage by individual self-actualization is a category error. Marriage has a telos, the generation of children, ordering of sexuality and transmission of culture. If obligation equals oppression, then motherhood, military service, and citizenship are all tyrannical. This is the cry of a soul that cannot bear the weight of being needed. Rome tried this experiment. As Patria Potestas was weakened but financial obligation retained, Roman men stopped marrying. Birth rates collapsed, Augustus's incentives failed. You cannot compel men to enter contracts where they bear all liability and hold no authority. Rome's family collapse preceded its civilizational collapse by 2 centuries. We are repeating this suicide. Apply the sex swap test. If a man could divorce, take her children, take half her assets, and receive her income for decades while being called brave, would we call marriage oppressive to men? Yes. The feminist claim is special pleading. Before marrying, audit the legal landscape of your jurisdiction with the diligence of a business partnership. Understand asset law, paternity presumption, and alimony duration. The man who marries without understanding family law is signing a contract he hasn't read. Marriage is not oppression, it is covenant. Oppression is demanding the fruits of marriage, children, provision, protection, while destroying the roots that produce them. A culture that calls the tree oppressive while eating its fruit will starve, and it will deserve to. But before a man ever reaches that altar, before he signs the contract he has not read, he must first survive the market that feeds it, and that market was rigged long before any priest opened his mouth. I want you to carry the image of that loaded legal instrument upstream to the place where the bidding actually begins, where biology has already set the reserve price before a man has earned his first dollar. The mating market is not a prelude to the family court. It is the same machinery of asymmetric extraction operating one level earlier. And the numbers, the honest, unflattering, unspun numbers reveal a premium so glaring that no feminist economist has ever dared to place it on a ledger. Because counting it would collapse the entire oppressor-oppressed narrative before the next sentence could be spoken. The fertility premium unmasking the hidden economy of female sexual value. Women rate 80% of men as below average looking. When OkCupid's Christian Rudder published this finding in 2014, it should have detonated every egalitarian fairy tale ever told about romantic desire. It didn't, because the cathedral of gynocentrism possesses excellent damage control men, following the honest arithmetic of their eyes, rated women along a normal distribution curve. The curve reality actually follows. On Tinder, men swipe right on approximately 46% of profiles. Women, a merciless 14%. The market does not care about your feelings. It does not flatter. It simply reveals what polite society refuses to name. Female sexual value is a currency, and men are paying for it with the products of their labor, their time, and their lives. I define the fertility premium as the unearned social, economic, legal, and psychological advantages accruing to women by virtue of possessing reproductive capacity, operating independently of merit, effort, character, or contribution. The word privilege comes from Latin privilegium, meaning a private law. Does female reproductive value create a private law for women? Does the same act receive different legal, social, and economic consequences based on the sex of the actor? If yes, privilege exists. If the answer changes based on who is asking, the privilege is real, and its concealment is deliberate. No feminist ledger has ever counted this premium, because counting it would end the conversation and end the grift. Bateman's principle, confirmed across 200 plus species since 1948, holds that the sex investing more in gametes is the limiting reproductive resource and therefore the choosier sex. Women, 1 egg per month, 9 months gestation, years of lactation. Men, millions of sperm, minutes of investment. Males must compete for access. This is not patriarchy. This is not social construction. This is biology older than language, older than ideology, older than the feminist departments pretending it doesn't exist. Their refusal to engage with evolutionary biology is not intellectual rigor. It is a man refusing to open his bank statement because the numbers make him uncomfortable, and then demanding the bank be demolished for offending him. Consider two people, a woman with no education, no job, no skills, no savings, and no accomplishments, and a man in identical circumstances. She still possesses sexual and reproductive value that men will pay to access. He possesses nothing. He must earn value through action, risk, labor, and provision. She is born holding a currency. He must mine his from the earth. Only fans prove this at industrial scale. Bella Thorne earned $1 million in her first 24 hours. Top creators earn 20+ million annually. Fertility value extracted with zero reciprocal obligation. The platform is merely the oldest economy of desire with a digital storefront, and the storefront has no returns counter. The transfer is continuous, quantifiable, and unidirectional. Men pay for 78% of first dates. The average engagement ring costs 500. Married men work 4.2 more hours per week than single men. Married women work 2.3 fewer. Alimony flows male to female approximately 97% of the time. Child support, 85%. Mothers receive primary physical custody in roughly 80% of cases. A man married to a woman is legally responsible for her children, regardless of biological paternity. And many jurisdictions impose a statute of limitations on challenging paternity shorter than the time it takes to discover. The fraud? The law treats female reproductive value as property men must indemnify, and male labor as a resource women may levy. Men constitute 93% of occupational fatalities, 97% of combat deaths, 76% of homicide victims, and 78% of suicide victims. Male disposability is not a myth. It is a statistical fact that feminist theory systematically refuses to incorporate. The Duluth model explicitly assumes male perpetrator and female victim, despite research by Murray Strauss, 2007, showing roughly equal rates of bilateral intimate partner violence. HR departments, Title IX's offices, mandatory arrest policies, and family courts all encode fertility premium logic as policy. When a man is harmed, he is told to man up. When a woman is harmed, society mobilizes. This is not equality. It is chivalry with a subpoena. Feminism acknowledges every disadvantage women face, real and imagined, while denying every advantage they possess, obvious and quantified. A ledger recording only debits and never credits is not accounting, it is fraud. But women face dangers men do not. Pregnancy, assault, domestic violence, the objection comes. Granted, aristocrats also faced assassination, political liability, and military conscription. No serious historian claimed aristocrats were oppressed because they bore costs alongside privileges. On the Titanic, 74% of women survived and 20% of men. The code persists even as feminism dismantles the authority that made it reciprocal. You cannot demand the sacrifice while destroying the standard that produces men willing to make it. Approximately 80% of U.S. welfare spending flows to women. TANF, SNAP, WIC, Medicaid, Sec 8, child care subsidies, a parallel husband funded by male taxpayers. Women vote for this state at higher rates than men, extracting collectively what they no longer extract individually. The fruit, fertility below replacement in every developed nation. Marriage strike. Male college enrollment dropped from 61% in 1970 to 41% in 2022. In any negotiation, dating, marriage, employment, ask 4 questions. What does she bring that I cannot provide? What do I bring she cannot? What does the law require me to provide? What does it require her to? A privilege that cannot be named will never be reckoned. Knowledge of the premium is the first act of sovereignty. But money is only the visible line on the invoice. There is a deeper transfer, older than currency, unrecorded in any statute, paid not in dollars but in bone, blood, and reflex. I have spent years trying to name what men give that no ledger captures, the body that moves before the mind decides, the instinct that costs everything and demands nothing. Men do not merely fund the premium with their labor and taxes, they underwrite the whole structure with their flesh, and the civilization that feeds on this reflex calls it poison. The unseen shield, male protection, crisis response, and the instinct ideology cannot name. I have watched it happen more times than I can count. A drunk patron raises his voice at a restaurant. Fists clench. The man at table 6 does not deliberate, consult his feelings, or run a privilege checklist. He shifts his chair, places his body between the threat and his companion. He did not decide, he moved. The word tells you everything. Protect comes from the Latin protegere, pro, before or in front of, and tegere, to cover. To protect is literally to stand before and cover. The word encodes the male body as shield. No feminist theorist has explained why the very word assumes a body positioned in front of a threat, if protection is not a gendered function. Consider the USS Indianapolis. In July 1945, approximately 900 men entered shark-infested waters after the sinking. For 4 days, survivors reported men forming protective circles around the wounded, giving away their life jackets, punching sharks away from weaker swimmers, maintaining discipline while the injured died around them. Of 316 survivors, virtually all credited their survival to men who protected others at personal cost. No one paid them. No Instagram post commemorated them. This is the protective instinct in its purest form, unpaid, unnamed, necessary. It is not a feeling. It is a reflex forged by over 100,000 generations of natural and cultural selection. The evolved disposition to place one's body, resources, and reputation between danger and those under one's care, frequently without conscious deliberation, at cost to self. Men perform virtually all hazardous labor: mining, 97.8% male; logging, 96.8%; roofing, 97.3%; commercial fishing, 99.2%; oil extraction, 96.1%; power line installation, 97.9%; firefighting, 95.6%; structural ironwork, 98.2%. These are not career choices. They are protective acts at civilizational scale, men absorbing risks so the infrastructure of life continues to function. The lights stay on because men climb poles in storms. The food arrives because men work boats that kill them. The feminist typing her dissertation on toxic masculinity, powered by a grid man, died building, is performing ingratitude as intellectual achievement. A city where men no longer protect is not a city of freedom. It is a city of guards, cameras, locked doors, and fear. Dismantle the shield and you get the security industrial complex and the bill. Feminism demands men do better at protecting women from harassment, violence, and emotional harm, while simultaneously insisting male protection is paternalistic condescension, denying women's agency. Protect, and you are a patriarch. Fail to protect, and you are complicit. This is not a standard. It is a Kafka trap designed to extract male labor while ensuring it can never be honored. The Duluth model explicitly assumes male protective behavior is patriarchal control. The protector is reclassified as predator. Meanwhile, Murray Strauss documented in 2007 that bilateral violence constitutes the majority of intimate partner violence, and women initiate physical violence at rates equal to or exceeding men. The protective instinct is criminalized when men defend themselves and demanded when women need defense within the same ideological framework. That is not justice, that is a racket. The evolutionary record is unambiguous. Bands with men willing to face predators, enemy raiders, and environmental danger survived. Bands where men fled perished along with their women and children. Male protective instinct is not a social construct imposed by patriarchy. It is a survival mechanism without which the species would have ended. The feminist calling it toxic is alive because men she never met were willing to die. Yet boys are no longer trained in protective capacity. Schools punish rough play. 25% of American children grow up fatherless. The apprenticeship, older men teaching younger men to assess threats, absorb risk, stand their ground, has been systematically dismantled. Men who show protective concern are mocked as white knights and simps. The shaming severs men from their instinct, leaving women unprotected and men purposeless. As male protection is pathologized, institutions rush in as substitute protectors: police, HR, campus security, restraining orders, welfare agencies, Title IX tribunals. These arrive after harm, not before. They process trauma. They do not prevent it. They fill paperwork. They do not step between a woman and a drunk man, but consider the lateral ledger, the friend who drives you home at 2 a.m., the friend who checks on you when you go quiet, the friend who shows up with a truck. This is protection without romance, payment, or recognition, the skeleton of civil society, and it is male. When a male friend calls in crisis, the pattern is assess threat, generate options, commit to action, follow through. That is not emotional insufficiency. It is the protective function operating through competence. Apply the sex swap test. If a woman stepped between her husband and a mugger, we would celebrate her in headlines in Disney films. When a man does the same, he performs his basic function and receives no medal. His protection is required. Hers is heroic. This is not equality. It is male disposability dressed as chivalry. The restorative standard is not control, but competent willingness to absorb risk on behalf of others. Protective authority must be governed by prudence, right reason applied to action, and justice giving each their due. A man who protects without competence is a liability. A man who is competent but will not protect is a coward. Formation requires both the skill to act and the will to act when it costs. Protection is not control. The father checking his daughter's date is protecting his household. The husband walking his wife to the car is serving her. The friend holding your keys when you have been drinking is loving you. The ideologue who cannot distinguish protection from control has never needed either. Train your protective capacity as a skill, not a feeling. Learn first aid and CPR, carry a tourniquet and know its use. Know your exits. Build strength sufficient to move a human body. Develop crisis protocols with your family. The man who will not stand between danger and his own has abandoned every office that makes him a man. Protection is not toxic. It is the first proof of love made physical. A civilization that cannot honor the shield does not deserve to hide behind it. But the shield arm is only half the formation. I learned this the hard way. Standing between a threat and your own means nothing if you cannot also stand between a lie and your mind. The body trained to protect is useless to the man who cannot define the threat, who cannot parse propaganda, who cannot distinguish a fact from a feeling costumed as one. Physical courage without intellectual formation produces a competent slave, strong enough to carry every burden, unarmed against the ideas that selected those burdens for him. And the simplest test of whether a man has armed his mind is not a debate, a thesis defense, or a credential. It is a single question, asked over dinner, that separates the formed from the consuming. The Examined Man, Intellectual Formation, the book that tests the soul and the recovery of logos. A woman on a second date asks, "So, what's the last book you read?" I have seen this moment happen. The man freezes. His phone holds 47 podcast episodes, 300 saved tweets, and 12 half-watched YouTube essays. He cannot name a single book. He has consumed media for years without once being formed by a book. This is not stupidity, it is famine. The median American adult reads approximately 4 books per year. 25% read 0. Pew Research, 2021. The average Fortune 500 CEO reads approximately 60. The gap between rulers and ruled is not primarily wealth. It is information density. The man who substitutes 47 podcast episodes for one serious book has consumed entertainment labeled as education. Podcasts give you the feeling of learning. Books give you the substance. Education derives from Latin educere, to lead out, to draw forth. It is not pouring information into a passive vessel, but drawing out the rational soul. Book comes from Old English book. Beech tree, the wood on which Germanic peoples carved runes. The book is nature made intelligible. Consider Abraham Lincoln, born in a one-room log cabin. Less than 18 months of formal schooling. By candlelight he read Shakespeare, the Bible, Blackstone's commentaries, Euclid's Elements. His Gettysburg Address, 272 words under 3 minutes, contains more rhetorical power and logical precision than any modern presidential speech. Formation produces capacity. Credentialism produces compliance. The difference is visible in every word a man speaks. The man who does not read has not been let out. He remains in the cave, watching shadows, mistaking flickering pixels for reality. This famine is engineered, not accidental. Boys are 30% more likely to drop out of high school. Male college enrollment dropped from 61% of all students in 1970 to approximately 41% in 2022. Women now earn approximately 60% of bachelor's degrees, 63% of master's degrees, and 56% of doctoral degrees. Boys are diagnosed with ADHD at 3 times the rate of girls, CDC. Recess eliminated or curtailed. Competitive games replaced with cooperative exercises. The message is unmistakable. The male mind is a disorder to be medicated, not a power to be formed. Modern schooling has been redesigned for female learning patterns, collaborative, verbal, sedentary, process-oriented, while punishing male patterns, competitive, kinesthetic, risk-taking, outcome-oriented. This is the fruit of treating male nature as a defect. Universities no longer form intellects, they credential consumers. A man with a degree in gender studies and 80,000 in non-dischargeable debt knows less about reality than a mechanic who reads Marcus Aurelius on his lunch break. The mechanic can define his terms, identify a bad argument, and repair a physical system. The graduate can recite jargon and signal conformity. The books that the Academy now assigns critical theory, postmodernism, feminist theory, queer theory are not intellectual traditions. They are intellectual autoimmune diseases. They use the language of inquiry to dissolve the possibility of truth. They teach that words have no stable meaning, that all claims are power plays, that evidence is oppression. Having read them, you know less than before you started. They are semantic sabotage. I will tell you what I tell every man who wants to think. Define your terms before you debate. Equality means equality of opportunity or equality of outcome. These are not the same thing. Violence means physical harm or speech that causes discomfort. Safety means physical protection or emotional comfort. Argue without definitions and you will spend 3 hours fighting a man who agreed with you at minute 1. Memorize the fallacies. Ad hominem, strawman, equivocation, mote and Bailey, begging the question, appeal to emotion, false dilemma. Name them in real time and you disarm any sophist. Test every claim with 4 questions. What are the premises? Do they entail the conclusion? Are they true? What evidence would falsify the claim? 1 year of this practice makes a man functionally immune to propaganda. A man should be able to state his opponent's argument better than the opponent can, then refute it. This is steelmanning, and it separates thinkers from ideologues. The great books are not dead white males. They are the survival memory of our civilization. Homer on honor, Aristotle on virtue, Aquinas on natural law, Dante on the soul's architecture, Shakespeare on human nature, Burke on inherited institutions. To discard these is a man burning his grandfather's map because he cannot read it, then wondering why he is lost. 3 men reading Aristotle in a garage on Thursday nights do more for civilization than a university department reading critical theory in a building named after a donor. In the beginning was the Word. The rational structure of reality is not imposed by male minds, it is discovered by them. A man who reads, reasons, writes, and speaks truth participates in the logos that orders all things. He aligns himself with meaning that existed before he was born and will exist after he dies. Writing forces precision, exposes hidden assumptions, and trains communication of truth. Here is the rule I give you. Read 1 book per week, write 1 paragraph per day, learn 1 word daily, including its etymology, master 1 syllogism weekly, debate 1 steel-manned opponent monthly. In 1 year, 52 books, 365 paragraphs, 365 words, 52 arguments. You will be more formed than any university could make you because you formed yourself under discipline rather than supervision. A man who does not read is governed by men who do. The book is the tool that turns a consumer into a sovereign. What's the last book you read is not small talk, it is a diagnostic. A man who does not read cannot lead because he cannot distinguish truth from propaganda, argument from assertion, or evidence from emotion. He will be governed by the last person who spoke confidently to him. In an age of systematic ideological capture, the unread man is the slave of whoever controls his feed. Read, reason, write, and rule, or be ruled by those who do. You now hold something most men spend their entire lives without a complete map of the territory. You have seen the marriage contract rewritten, every molecule of male authority surgically excised, while every ounce of male obligation is retained, amplified, and enforced at gunpoint. You have watched the fertility premium operate in plain sight, unacknowledged in every feminist ledger, every dating app metric, every welfare office, every family court. Every HR tribunal, a currency women spend from puberty onward while being told they are economically disadvantaged. You have recognized your own protective instinct for what it is, not pathology, not toxic masculinity, but the biological and moral architecture that kept every woman in your ancestral line alive long enough to reproduce. And you have been handed the one weapon that cannot be confiscated, legislated against, or medicated into submission: the disciplined intellect, trained in grammar, logic, and rhetoric, aligned with the rational structure of reality itself. I think of a mechanic I once knew, immigrant background, hands like locking pliers, vocabulary limited, but lethal in its precision. He never read feminist theory, he never attended a diversity workshop, but he could diagnose a failing transmission by sound alone, rebuild an engine with tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch, and tell you exactly what a broken thing needed in order to work again. When his marriage dissolved, the court took his house, his savings, and his children, and handed them to a woman who had never changed a flat tire. He did not weep. He did not post a manifesto. He picked up his tools and went back to work, because the world still needed fixing, and he was the kind of man who fixed it. He died at 57 at his workbench with a wrench still in his hand. No hashtag, no candlelight vigil, no Netflix documentary. Just another man who carried more than his share and was carried out feet first when his heart gave out. Because that is what hearts do when they hold the weight of a civilization that refuses to say thank you. That man was not oppressed by marriage in the way feminists describe. He was oppressed by a system that demanded his sacrifice while criminalizing his authority, that extracted his labor while pathologizing his instinct to protect, that counted every dollar he earned and never once counted the hours, the risk, the noise, the grease, the frozen mornings, the missed birthdays, the slow gravitational collapse of a body traded for a family that the court eventually removed from him anyway. The feminist ledger counts the housewife's unpaid labor. It never counts the mechanic's paid labor that paid for the house she labored in. That is not scholarship. That is embezzlement performed with footnotes. But here is the genuinely good news, and I mean genuinely. You cannot be governed by lies you have learned to see through. The man who can define his terms, test a syllogism, identify a loaded premise in real time, and state his opponent's argument better than the opponent can state it himself. That man is free. Not because the laws have changed, but because he sees the architecture of the cage. He knows which contracts not to sign blind. He knows which cultural narratives are weaponized against him. He knows that a woman rating 80% of men below average on a dating app is not a verdict on male adequacy, but a thermometer measuring female entitlement amplified by technology. He knows his protective instinct is not a disorder, but a gift, and that the society pathologizing it will be devoured by its absence. He knows that a man who reads 52 books a year cannot be ruled by a scrolling feed. He is inoculated. So go, read Homer and learn what honor costs. Read Aristotle and learn what a thing is for. Lift your body until it can carry another human being out of a burning building. Master a skill that cannot be outsourced to a diversity coordinator. Vet the women in your life by their conduct, not their claims, and demand reciprocity before you offer provision. When the ideologue tells you your masculinity is toxic, that your protection is control, that your authority is oppression, and that your silence is violence, remember that you have read the ledger. You have seen the numbers. You know the price men pay, and you know that every civilization that ever stood was built by men exactly like you, men who did not ask permission to be necessary. The truth you carry now is not a burden, it is a torch. And there are men around you still sitting in the dark, believing the shadows are all there is. Hand them this. They will recognize the light because it was always theirs. Sponsored book, The Ultimate Guide to Modern Agriculture. Farmers don't cry, they conquer. I learned this at 14, watching my father's Montana wheat fields bake into cracked earth during the '88 drought. While bureaucrats offered condolences and activists preached sustainable retreat, we drilled deeper wells, rerouted rivers, and outproduced every hand-wringing neighbor. That season forged my contempt for weakness masquerading as virtue, a contempt sharpened over 30 years battling regulators, pests and heirs who'd rather turn fertile soil into vegan yoga retreats. This book is the antithesis of your college ag professors droning about ecosystem balance. Balance doesn't feed families, dominance does. Modern agriculture suffers a plague of sentimentalism. Soybean yields crash because farmers prioritize Instagram activism over nitrogen quotas. Water rights get signed away to appease urban guild cults. Sons inherit centuries of topsoil wealth, only to plant quinoa for boutique grocers. This isn't farming, it's surrender. My methods, distilled from Roman war crop strategies and hard data on GMO, survival rates bypass morality for measurable results. You learn to genetically edit weakness out of your crops, deploy drones as private pest control armies, and structure land trusts that outlive wishy-washy descendants. This manual exists for men who measure success in bushels per acre, not hashtags. If you've ever resented handing 40% of your harvest to a bank or watched locusts skeletonize fields while some NGO whines about biodiversity, these pages weaponize that rage. Chapters like Water Empire and Diesel Dynasty reveal how Assyrian-level irrigation control and Soviet-grade machinery can bankrupt competitors. Black Market Harvests teaches guerrilla tactics for thriving under hostile legislation. Non-farmers, especially those allergic to profit margins, should discard this book immediately. It contains no chapters on community gardening or soothing lectures about Earth Mothers. Your local library stocks plenty of fairy tales about talking scarecrows. To the real cultivators, your land isn't a petting zoo, it's a war zone. Arm yourself. The Ultimate Guide to Modern Agriculture, written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now. Links in description.